What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Sports Hub. If you're new here, my name is Brian. I am the host of this podcast. And in today's episode, I'm going to go over some of the top trade candidates that you guys should be keeping an eye on before the NFL trade deadline on Tuesday, November 5th at 4 p.m. Before I jump in the list, let me send you to the intro. Then you can join me back, and we'll go straight into my first two candidates. All right, starting off, I have two wide receiver candidates, both of which are with New York teams. I have Mike Williams, the 30-year-old veteran with the New York Jets, and then I also have the 27-year-old seasoned veteran Darius Slayton with the New York Giants. Starting with Mike Williams, he's on a bad Jets team that just really hasn't performed up to the level or expectations they were hoping for at the beginning of the season. And he's also in a very, very loaded wide receiver room. He's right now fifth on the depth chart behind Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley, and Allen Lazard. Now, granted, Allen Lazard just got put on the IR, but that only moves him up to fourth on the roster, which means he gets very little, if at all, any playing time on the field. For that reason, I think the best option for the Jets, and I think the best option for Mike Williams, is to get traded. For the Jets, you're selling a player that is only on a one-year deal. He is leaving by the end of the season, so why not accumulate some picks, get some acquisitions back for a player that really isn't helping at all just because of his roster position, just because where he is on the depth chart. As for Darius Slayton, very similar circumstance. On a bad Giants team, he has a contract. His contract's coming up at the end of the year. They're going to have to either re-sign him or let him walk. Why not trade him for some acquisition, for some picks, maybe a player to help the Giants in the future? He's also in a very, I would say, semi-good wide receiver room. It's not heavy talent right now, but it has a high ceiling. You have Jalen Hyatt, you have Wan'Dale Robinson, and you have Malik Nabers, the standout rookie. All three of them will be looking at some point in the next year or two a contract extension, other than Malik Nabers, who's signed for a few more years. But when you look at the wide receivers and how young they are and what they're looking to possibly get signed to, Darius Slayton kind of becomes the odd man out. And I think as far as the Giants organization goes, it would be better just to part ways with him and trade him for some acquisitions so you're not letting him walk free to a contender or any other team. Now, as far as these wide receivers go, I have four teams that I believe will be looking the hardest or like the most at these two wide receivers. And those four teams are the Steelers, who kind of obvious. Pretty much any time there's a wide receiver on the trade market this year, they've been tied to him. Brandon Ayuk, DeAndre Hopkins, Davante Adams, Amari Cooper, whoever was available, they've always been tied to him. They're also tied right now to Mike Williams, and I think they've even been tied to Darius Slayton as well. Another team that to watch, to look for, is the Chargers. They've been interested in Mike Williams, a reunion, as Mike Williams left the Chargers a season ago to join the Jets this year. So that will be one reunion to be looking out for. Commanders is another team. There was a report out that said that Terry McLaurin right now is the star. He is the lead receiver, and the Commanders are looking to pair another receiver with Terry McLaurin. So what better way to do it than with either Mike Williams or Darius Slayton, both of which have been proven wide receiver twos in their careers. And the last team that I think is a little bit of a sleeper, not many people are really thinking about them, is the Houston Texans. They have a very good wide receiver room with Nico Collins and Tank Dell leading the charge, but they lost their third of that trio. I wouldn't say the third wide receiver because he could be a 1, 2, or 3. Any of them could be a 1, 2, or 3 on the Texans. But they did lose Stephon Diggs to an ACL tear a few weeks ago, and I think a great person to fill that spot would be Darius Slayton. He has a very similar build to Stephon Diggs, and he's a very good route runner that can get separation, make a play when called on, and I think that'd be a perfect fit for the Texans. So that's my fourth team that I'd be looking for to make those trades. Moving on to my next two candidates, I have two edge rushers now. The first one is Darius Smith, 32-year-old seasoned veteran playing for the Cleveland Browns right now. And then the other candidate is Azeez Ojulari. He is ending his rookie contract right now, and he is an edge for the New York Giants, very young at 24, actually born in 2000, which is kind of crazy to think that there are players right now in the NFL playing born in 2000. but he is coming up on the end of his rookie contract, and he is one candidate that I believe will also be on the look for the trade block or on the trade block with the Giants. But going to Zadarius Smith and looking a little bit more into him, he's on a bad Browns team. They have only won 2 games this year. They have not looked as good as they had hoped they would be. His contract does expire next year, so it's no real rush to try and get him, but you might as well sell high on a veteran. If a veteran is 32, you might as well sell high while he's doing good now. He's 13th in the league in 5 sacks. He is doing well. He has good production. Like I said, sell high, get the acquisitions, get the picks or the players, and just try to build this team, salvage this season, hopefully. And if that doesn't work, use the picks, use the players to get a better season or a better start to the season next year. As for Azeez Ojulari, he's on a bad Giants team. It's very similar to Darius Slayton. He's on a bad Giants team. His contract runs out at the end of the year, and he's in a loaded edge rusher room with Kayvon Thibodeaux and Brian Burns. Having those two there, Kayvon and Brian, you're already paying a ton of money to Brian after trading him last year. And then as far as Kayvon goes, he will be looking for a contract possibly at the end of next year at the earliest time. And you can't really put that much money into your edge rushers in the first place. So now if you're paying 3 guys top of the market money, you're just kind of screwing the rest of the team because you can't build around more than just 3 edge rushers. For that reason, again, sell high, get the acquisitions, get the picks, build a better roster, build a better team, and look for the future. Now, teams that I would be looking for to trade for these two would be the Detroit Lions. They're the main team. They are the team at the top of any edge rusher list because they lost their star edge rusher in Aiden Hutchinson to a broken leg a few weeks ago. Then the other teams I'd be looking for would be the Baltimore Ravens. They're looking for a little bit of a boost on their defense. Their defense has been a little lackluster after last year's incredible historical defense that they've had. They're looking a little lackluster and honestly are ranked as one of the worst defensive units in the NFL. So I would look for them to possibly be adding one of these edge rushers or an edge rusher by the deadline. In addition, I have 3 other teams. The Falcons, they're looking for a little bit of a boost to their edge rush unit as well. The Cincinnati Bengals, who have a great high-powered offense and just haven't been able to click on defense yet. Their defense is, again, one of the worst in the NFL. And the last team I'm looking for is the Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, they're in playoff hunt. They're actually in division lead right now. They are right now slated to win the division, the NFC West, over the 49ers, over the Seahawks. They could be trying to add a pass rusher to bolster or to boost their way to get to the division title. So I would absolutely see the Cardinals trading for one of these two, if not another edge rusher, by the end of the deadline. Going on to my last 2 candidates I want to highlight, it's Marshawn Lattimore, the 28-year-old cornerback playing for the New Orleans Saints, and then Budda Baker, the 28-year-old safety playing for the Arizona Cardinals. As far as Lattimore goes, he's on a bad Saints team. They've won 2 games. They went 2-0 to start, and now they've gone on a 7-game losing streak, including dropping one today to the Carolina Panthers. So it does not look pretty for the Saints. Marshawn Lattimore has not really been able to play this year. He's been a little bit of injury prone the last few years. So once again, sell high, just like many of these other bad teams. You want to sell high, get the picks, get the players, get whatever acquisitions or whatever package you can get for this star, and then just move on. You just want to flip the page and move on. Go on to the next season, go on to the next game, whatever the case is. That's what I believe. His contract does run through 2026, so he is there for another 2 years if they do not trade him. They have time to trade him if they wanted to, or they can just hold him and hopefully get this Saints team figured out. But as far as I believe, I think they should trade him. Again, get the acquisitions, get the picks, and then build from there. Budda Baker, this is an interesting one. This is an interesting one for the safety because the GM of the Cardinals has come out and said that he does not want to trade Budda Baker. However, in years past, I've seen plenty of times as a fan, and I've heard plenty of times as a fan, that there have been GMs come out and say, we don't want to trade this guy, and then all of a sudden a package is given to them that is too good to trade up, so they end up trading him anyway. One example that happened last year that wasn't exactly that, it was Brian Burns. Brian Burns, I believe it was last year, he was given the opportunity, the Panthers given the package of like 2 first-round picks or 3 first-round picks. It was multiple first-round picks and a few other picks in addition. They decided to decline it because they were like, we're going to keep him. He's here for the long run. And then a few months later, he ends up getting traded to the Giants for a middle round pick. It was like 2 mid-round picks, 4th to 6th rounds. So we have seen in the past that a GM or a team has been locked on a player saying he will never leave, and then all of a sudden flip a switch because a package is too good, or they get a hit of realization that their team just isn't as good as they think. For that reason, I do think Budda Baker on my list of these 6 is the least likely to get traded, but I would not be shocked at all if he does. Now, going a little bit deeper than just what the GM said, the reason I believe Budda may be on the trade block right now is because his contract expires at the end of the season. That is a big thing for any trade candidate, is if your contract expires at the end of the season, this is when you start debating, do I trade him for picks, especially a veteran, or do I decide to hold on another year or two in hopes that we make a better run or make another run to the playoffs? On top of that, the Cardinals are doing pretty well this year. I could see them keeping Budda for that reason. Obviously, that's what the GM probably thinks as well. They are leading the division. But nonetheless, his contract does expire. And if they choose not to sign him because of the money, then you lose out on, again, acquisitions, picks, and players, possibly. Now, as far as teams to go ahead and try and trade for these players, I have 7. There are a lot of teams that are looking for defensive back help, secondary help. And for me, the main one for Budda Baker would be the Philadelphia Eagles. There is a report that they were very interested in Budda Baker, and they're always looking for another safety. They still haven't really had a star safety since C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Now, they did re-sign him this season, but they're still looking for more help in that secondary, especially with the 2 young rookie corners that they have in Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell. So I would not be shocked at all if the Eagles go to trade for Budda Baker or even Marshawn Lattimore, but I think they'd be leaning more towards Budda Baker out of these 2. Some other teams that are looking, the Chiefs are looking to possibly add Marshawn Lattimore. They are very interested, as well as the Commanders. The Commanders are also very interested in Marshawn Lattimore. Those 2 teams would be looking to try and bolster their defense as they push for another division title. The Chiefs would be pushing for their division title defense from last year, and the Commanders are pushing for their first division title in quite some time. So those 2 would be looking for Marshawn Lattimore. Some other teams that I'd be looking, the other 4 teams I was looking at were the Ravens. The Ravens are obviously looking for secondary help. Their defense, like I said, has not been as great as it was last year. It's been really lackluster. It's been kind of the letdown of the entire team so far. So they're looking for some boost to their secondary as well. And then the Lions would be looking for some. The Minnesota Vikings and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could also be looking for some secondary help. Those 7 teams, I would not be shocked to see make a move. There could be other teams that make a move, maybe some non-contenders, maybe some contenders. But to me, I would be keeping an eye on those 7 teams looking for these 2 players. Now, some other notable names before I end the episode. A few other notable names that I'd be keeping an eye on would be Jadeveon Clowney. He is the edge rusher for the Carolina Panthers. Miles Sanders, the running back for the Carolina Panthers. Nate Davis, an offensive guard for the Chicago Bears. Greg Newsome, a cornerback for Cleveland Browns. Andre Cisco, a safety for Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevon Moehrig, I believe I'm saying his name right. I apologize if I butcher it, but I believe it's Trevon Moehrig, a safety for the Las Vegas Raiders, and Jonathan Jones, a cornerback for the New England Patriots. These are some of the other top players I'll be looking at. Now, all of these players that I named, I don't believe all of them will be traded by the deadline. It is very rare that many players are traded within 24, 48 hours of the deadline. But I do expect a pretty good handful of these to be traded. And it's going to be really exciting. I mean, with all these players out, some of these are star players that I've known growing up from 2014. Some of these are some rookies coming off, or young players coming off their rookie contracts. So it's going to be interesting to see who can boost their offense, who can boost their team before playoffs, who can improve their contending team, or who will sell out and just try to focus on next year. But nonetheless, it's going to be an exciting 24 to 48 hours. And like I said, this one is all about trade candidates. That was this episode. Next episode, I will be talking more about I'll be recapping all of the trades that have happened before the deadline. But I am, again, very excited for the next 24 to 48 hours. It is probably my favorite point, other than the draft night, to watch, just because it's all the trades and the movements between the teams. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for tuning in this episode. And remember, this is Brian Sports Hub, your source for sports.